Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I am your host, Marc Guberti, founder of the Content Marketing Plaza, bringing you 3 new episodes each week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. And before we jump into today's episode, let me ask you a quick question. How much would your life change if you could make 6 figures from your content? Imagine being able to quit your 9-to-5 job, do what you love for a living, and spend more time with your family. That's what we help our students do at the Content Marketing Plaza, an 8-week program that will help you build your way to 6 figures via your content. You can learn more about the Plaza by heading over to contentmarketingplaza.com, which will be in the show notes. All right, let's jump right back into the episode. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, one of the things that you need to be focused on is being productive, because productivity is what allows us to accomplish our big goals and really head towards the milestones that we're heading towards. But when it comes to having a team, you have to be able to communicate with each person on your team. And it doesn't matter if you're just delegating to one person, and a lot of people do recommend delegating as something you could really do to grow your business. But how do we get the communication down? How do we boost the productivity of the people on our staff? And how do we boost our productivity so we're able to get these incredible results, like being able to save 40 hours of productivity each month? And I mean, we could just start to think about all the different things we could accomplish if we had those extra 40 hours. So we're going to talk about how we can be more productive, how we can get our team more productive, and really fuel that through communication in today's episode. So today's guest is a serial entrepreneur who has made over $100 million in sales throughout his businesses. He is the founder of Shift Your Time, where he teaches entrepreneurs and business leaders how to use Marco Polo to communicate for internal communication and give staff an extra 40 hours of productivity each month. Today's guest for episode 291 of the Breakthrough Success podcast is none other than Robert Hartline. Robert, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, Marc, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to listen.
Robert, I'm really happy to have you on the show, and I know there's so much to talk about with productivity, especially from a team focus. But before we do that, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your backstory and why you decided to start Shift Your Time.
Hey, well, so I have been selling cell phones since 1994 and started a business in 99. And, 20 years later, I feel like I have figured a few things out in regards to how to communicate with other people and how awfully inefficient we are as entrepreneurs, spending a majority of our day talking to people. And I just feel like there was a better way.
And I mean, I love that entrepreneurial spirit right there, seeing some problem and really looking to fix it. And you mentioned some old ways of communication, like email and phone calls, that can be draining your company and your team. And I mean, I know you coined them as old ways, but I feel like they are still so ingrained within society, like email and phone call. Like, what else is there? So what is the new way of communication that we should be focusing on?
Well, first of all, it's not really an old way. I mean, face-to-face communication is the most natural form of communication. It's literally the first thing we did when we came out of the womb. We looked at our mother in the face, and that's our first internal communication, talking to our friends and family. And frankly, so much of business these days are within a Slack channel or an email or a phone call, when really what we desperately need is get back to face-to-face. Get back to full communication. Full communication involves face-to-face. You literally, there's so much by looking at someone in the face and seeing them speak and hearing their voice and seeing the tone and seeing their facial expressions and the body language that goes along with what we actually say. there's more and much better ways than this archaic way that we've all fallen into. I mean, in fact, if the phone came out tomorrow and it did not exist, and the first thing was not the phone, but was video communication, that's the only thing we would use. If the phone came out, we'd be like, well, why would I just talk on the phone? I need to see this person. But we're used to the phone because we all grew up in that way. But to answer your question, Mark, I discovered about 2.5 years ago this app in the marketplace called Marco Polo, and it's a video walkie-talkie app, and it makes it really easy to communicate to people, whether or not you're in the same time zone or you are in the same neighborhood or what. It's super easy to communicate without the other person having to be waiting for you to communicate. You just communicate when you want to. They open the app when they are ready, and they can receive your information as fast as humanly possible in a most natural way possible, and that's full human contact with face-to-face communication.
And I do like the face-to-face element because, I mean, email only goes so far, phone calls only go so far, but what makes Marco Polo different from doing something like a Skype or just emailing someone a video?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I mean, number one, if you and I want to talk on a Skype, you have to put it in your calendar, and so do I. And I also cannot be at a place where I don't have great internet. I spent half my life in Costa Rica with my family, and I may not have internet, I may not have power, and that makes communication over the internet very tricky at times. And that's not even counting into the fact that we as humans have to be mentally ready to have a conversation. So if you and I were going to have a conversation, we could easily do Skype, and as long as the internet and all the worlds collide and everything works out great and we have a great internet connection, we all have power, Skype is a great medium. But when you are busy and you got a lot of things going on in your world, what you don't want to do is just be constantly interrupted with Skype calls or phone calls or things like that. And that's why Marco Polo is special, because it literally right now we're on a podcast together, and I got my teammates and friends and family communicating with me in Marco Polo right this second, I'm sure. And when I'm done with you, I'll go grab a cup of coffee and spend a few minutes and go through all my communication and listen and respond to people. And when I'm ready to do that, I can respond. Skype, it's very interesting. You and I having a conversation. If you asked me a tough question, human behavior says that I'm going to give you some feedback and answer you. Whether it's the right answer or wrong answer, it doesn't matter. We don't like silence, so you want to hear something out of my mouth. The beauty of Marco Polo is if you ask me a tough question, I can create a little bit of space, think about, research, look up, whatever, and then give you the right answer with some thought. We don't get that in face-to-face communication typically. And that's what makes Marco Polo really a game-changing app when it comes to running a business.
That is definitely interesting because, I mean, I know I could sometimes, like, if I were to ever ask a question and someone doesn't know the answer to it, I mean, you could like maybe spend some more time researching to come up with the answer that you want to come up with. So I definitely see the benefit of Marco Polo. My question is, though, I mean, like, with an interview, as you mentioned, yes, we did have to schedule this interview. So, like, if our schedules didn't align, it would have been a lot harder. But, I mean, like, we are in a live, like, dialogue right now. Do you think that using something like Marco Polo would hurt the ability to have that live dialogue as if you're just watching a video of someone? Or do you think that you're still able to get that feeling of a conversation?
Yeah, you definitely have a sense of a conversation. And when if you and I were talking on Marco Polo right now, and we were using Marco Polo, I could record a video and say whatever, and then you would see me doing it. It's almost a live experience doing it that way. So it is like a conversation. Not much different than a conversation. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there is a lot of reasons to have a live conversation, whether in person or a live video. Those are all truly valuable. But really, what I learned over the years, and that's really why I started this consulting business, is often teams, companies, when you're leading people, generally do not have a communication playbook. They all come to organizations with different habits, whether they used email primarily, whether they use phone or conference calls or video or Slack or all the other channels. Generally, people typically stay in their lane. They kind of typically stay in doing the same thing in terms of communication. And often there's a lot of misalignment amongst groups. And so what we do is we work with organizations to move all their internal communication. That means email and generally phone calls to Marco Polo, and use email for reports, for general information that you're sharing. But when it comes to showcasing a big idea or talking about strategy, there's nothing better than you on video with your own voice, with your own passion, talking about what you want. And ideas are far easier to adopt when you can see the entire vision. It's tough to communicate vision in email. It's nearly impossible to do it great in phone calls as well. So what we do is we help organizations, number one, identify that they have a problem. Most don't realize they do until they start looking at the time they've spent rewriting an email or dealing with people when they got their feelings hurt because an email was written incorrectly or wasn't perfect. And frankly, companies that move to this model find that they have so much more energy and time when they're able to really, it's called batching their communication in a format that allows them to respond to those messages on their own schedule instead of being beholden to waiting for a phone call or getting interrupted while you're in the middle of a state of flow.
And I really like that idea of batching communications, just the idea of batching in general. And I mean, again, like with this app, I can see like it's easier in the fact that you don't have to set a time and day to meet. You just shoot a video. My question is, how do you keep up with all of it? Because, I mean, I know that you have, it could really backlog at certain points. Also, you have the idea, communicating with the right people. So how, in a sense, are you able to continue communicating with the right people, staying on top of that, and also being able to watch the videos that you are receiving back?
Yeah, so the way the app works, and I know this is a podcast, so it's really hard to, show. And then that's what the beauty of video is, showing full context, and actually literally show and speak. But the app makes it super easy to not only see who's recently contacted you and watch those in an organized fashion, but more importantly, my most favorite thing that the app does is allow you to talk to groups. So in my organization, I have a chain of retail stores. I have about 68 locations throughout the Southeast. And we have locations grouped by what we call districts, and we have district managers, and we have teams of people. So one team is a different group than another team. And communicating those teams separately makes it very easy to handle challenges and obstacles with groups versus trying to communicate any other way. I mean, what primarily as an entrepreneur, what we're meant to do is really, our core mission is to inspire people. And when we have vision, we got to cast that vision in a way that people can accept it and receive it, and then carry out the vision, which is what we all want to do. And there's just absolutely no other better way than creating instant videos for the team members to watch, respond, collaborate, and share, whether it's a great news story in terms of a big sale someone had, or celebrating an anniversary in the company or whatnot. you're able to really, imagine for a moment you had a team of people. And for me, it's a team of about 400 people. And there's no possible way I could really reach out and touch my team efficiently. I would have to literally do it through email if I didn't have Marco Polo. But having the ability to lift someone's spirit when they've had a kick-ass day and you're giving a big thank you very much and celebrating in front of their peers, it's immensely amazing what you can do by lifting someone's spirit, and you get them to do it again. They just want to hustle even harder when they get recognized. And really, video is the best way to do that.
And that is interesting that you have 400 people, and this app really helps you have that kind of structure where you are able to communicate with all of them. And I can see how it helps with productivity because it just makes communication easier, the scheduling, which is something that we've covered. But you're a serial entrepreneur. You've gotten into a lot of different businesses, and what I'm getting is Marco Polo is a really valuable tool for your business and for a lot of other businesses. What are some of the other things that you're also doing to be productive?
So when it comes to productivity, really our time is certainly the most valuable resource, and what tends to happen with people when it comes to thinking of productivity, it's amazing the value of a clear mind to think. And we are bombarded with so many distractions, and the act of turning off is a tool. When you turn off your communication platforms and your email and your internet, and you just have a blank sheet of paper, spend the time to think. It is incredibly rewarding what your brain will generate for you. And a lot of us just don't give us enough space. So I guarantee you, if you spent more time in thought, you're going to find that's the best tool you have.
And that's a really powerful message, because when we do think about some of the different things that we're doing, we really take a step back and we really look at what we're actually working towards, what each day really adds up to. You can have a deeper idea of what you need to be doing each day to achieve some of the goals that you set for yourself. And we all do set a lot of goals for ourselves, but some people, they may feel like they're stuck with the current goals that they have, and they're wondering how do they get unstuck. So can you share with us, what do you believe holds most people back from accomplishing their big goals?
Well, a lot of people generally don't have big enough lofty goals, and they usually set the goals based on the allotted time. And if you change your paradigm, the way you think of time, you can enable yourself to have just bigger ideas and think completely differently. Just the simple act of, telling people right here, download this app. It's a free app. Doesn't cost you a penny. I got nothing to sell here. I really don't. I don't got anything to sell. But just a simple act of using this app as your primary source of communication, you're going to notice that your phone rings less. And when your phone rings less, you have more sustainable thought. And when you have sustainable thought, you start to solve problems that are going on in your world in a much different and profound way, because the thought creates the space that all solutions are solved by. Yeah, we all have done this. You've been sitting at your computer, you've screwed something up, something is broken, and you're literally hacking away at it. You cannot figure it out. And you finally give up. And you, later in your day, you work out, you're having a shower, you're putting shampoo in your hair, and all of a sudden that idea just pops in your eye. And you're like, suddenly you've solved it. We have all faced that. And not enough of us have that space for these solutions just to appear. But when you take all the interruptions out of the day, you start to discover you have plenty of time for even bigger goals. And that's why one of the things I work with I work with other entrepreneurs to walk them through how do you, once you get this transition to happen, one of the first things I teach is you have to reanalyze your goals, because if I suddenly give you a gift of 160 hours a month, you suddenly look at your world in a completely different way. You're like, well, gosh, I do have time to work harder, think better at this new project and get it off the ground versus the allotted time that we have. But most of us generally just don't think big enough ideas. And, we don't know what the world's, what's the future will hold for all of us. The best idea and biggest idea has not been invented yet. And we all seem to think that everything's been discovered, and it's not. It's up to us, really. It's entrepreneurs that are the ones that generate the ideas, that create change. And the beauty of all of this is the best idea hasn't been invented yet. It's up to us to create it.
That's a really awesome message, and I feel like a lot of people, they think that big idea is already out there, so definitely really great that you emphasize, hey, there are more big ideas to come. One's bigger than what we currently have. I mean, some of these big ideas like social media, podcasting, like they were not possible, like they weren't conceivable, like just a decade or two ago, more like 2 decades ago. But the point is, like, these ideas, they're relatively new. We have a lot more new ideas coming our way. And part of what allows us to come up with a big idea, to see it through implementation, or just to take a goal that we have and make it successful, is having the right habits behind this. So, Robert, I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the habits that you believe have been essential for your success.
Well, it's funny. I have around 200 salespeople at my organization, and I have the data to tell me, who's winners. And I spend a lot of time with my winners because I feel like there's certainly always evidence for people's success, and it's pretty obvious. It's more like a science than anything, because it's pretty black or white. Typically, what I find when it comes to top entrepreneurs, what I find is they're all pretty much, when I say the elite, I mean, I'm talking like the 1% of the 1%ers, typically are people who get up really early, they exercise, they eat right, and they're generally positive people. And that fundamentally is so simple for everyone to do. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't like to get up early. Well, that's fine. You can get up whenever you want to. I'm just telling you what I've seen with other people that are wildly successful. And it's generally, they enjoy the day so much that their body is literally waking them up, taking them to the gym, getting some exercise, focused on eating well, and taking that day every single day with consistency, with positive energy, because the positive energy that we put on this universe just comes back to us with positive things and opportunities for all of us. And so I have to say that's for me. I've always had a great positive attitude, and I understand myself well enough when I do have struggles, how to get out of those struggles and get from a negative place to a positive place. And those are skills I think we all learn as time goes on, as we get older and become wise. We know how to treat our body as the instrument it is, and it has oil that needs to be changed, and it's got a tune-up that has to happen every now and then, and all those things are important as we grow older on how to make that engine keep cooking like it's supposed to.
And I mean, a lot of really awesome insights. And again, like a lot of people, as you mentioned, they do wake up really early. They do exercise. There's a lot that goes into these really successful people. And it's no secret, like what they do. It's just a matter of, if we want to achieve that success, put in the work that these top people are putting in to achieve that success. So thank you for sharing some of those key habits with us. And another big habit that I'd like everyone to do is learn as much as possible. And one of my favorite ways to learn is to read as many books as possible. So with that in mind, Robert, I'm wondering if you could share with us 3 books that you believe will have a positive impact on us.
Probably my favorite book always is The Science of Getting Rich. It was written in 1910. And that book has had a profound impact on the way I view the world. And if you've never, if you want a sampling of the book, you don't want to make a terrible investment of spending lots of time reading, you can certainly listen to it free on YouTube. But you could also watch the movie that it was based on, which was which is called The Secret. And it's on Netflix. You can watch that right now. The book was written in 1910 and really was a catalyst to get Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. But the premise is very simple. You think positive thoughts and good things will happen. I mean, there's so much truth in thinking things in a certain way and they becoming so. I mean, you have a great audacious goal, write that goal down, visualize it, and it will become so. It's happened to me so many times, it's not even funny. You write it down and it happens. But along the journey of, business, one of the things that's helped me, another book is 48 Laws of Power. And Robert Greene's book is fundamentally probably one of the most important leadership books that exist, because knowing what devious people do to you in the workplace or in entrepreneurship, knowing those pitfalls and understanding where they're coming from is super helpful. And probably the last book I would recommend is, I'm reading it right now, and it's another Robert Greene book, and that's The Laws of Human Nature. And, you're exactly right, Mark, when it comes to learning. I didn't mention learning. Learning is just kind of a given. What I think everyone that would be listening is a learner. They are already doing it. And they're probably doing it in their car right now, driving down the street, getting their learn on with Mark and Robert right now. And the beauty of your audience is they are eager to learn, and they're doing it. And so I love podcasting. I love what you can do when you're simply driving your car and learning something new each and every day.
Robert, thank you for sharing those great books with us. Those will all be in the show notes, markguberti.com/E291. We'll also throw in content marketing secrets in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn how to grow their content brands, get traffic, and generate revenue. And before we wrap up this episode, I'm actually going to flip the tables a little bit. So, Robert, what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
A giant why. Why are you doing what you're doing right now? I tell my team all the time, reach over, grab your hand, and feel your pulse. What's it doing? And sometimes that pulse is not your pulse, your heartbeat, but it's what you are doing right at this moment. How are you feeling? Self-investigate. Why do you feel that way? What are you doing right now? And often it's the act of self-analyzing that we do, that we discover and start finding patterns. And once you discover the pattern, you can solve the problem. And so we all have things that we are working on, but if you're aware of your patterns and how to avoid some of the traps that we fall into with self-sabotage, you start to really be in tune with how to lead a great life. And certainly I'm on a mission to do it, and I know your team is doing it as well.
Robert, thank you for sharing with us that great question, all of your great insights to our time together. If you guys want to learn more about Robert, head over to Shift Your Time. That is his company where he teaches entrepreneurs and business leaders how they can use Marco Polo to make communication go a lot smoother. So thank you again, Robert, for taking the time to be on Breakthrough Success.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks, man.
Want to dominate the podcasting industry? Now you can with your free copy of my book, Podcast Domination. You'll learn how to launch, grow, and monetize your very own show. And whether you are a beginner or an expert, this book has a lot of golden nuggets for you. We'll cover the cost of producing this book. All we ask is that you cover the shipping. To get your copy, head over to markguberti.com/PD.